then he asked if I would like to see what earth looks like from heaven's perspective. And we looked down and we could see earth not so far away. It's not as far, heaven isn't as far off as we think it is. We just can't see it. I could see people walking around. They also were muddy brown. They were hunched over with burdens on their backs. I could see demons walking among them and putting burdens on and then chains on their feet and doing everything they could to bring trouble to the lives of people. But I could see Christians walking among them, and Christians had the light of Jesus shining out of their faces. And they had the authority to take those heavy packs off of people's backs and to take the chains off of their feet. And so that's what the Christians were doing as they wandered.
On my phone run, daughter to dread. Senton le lampia meduba. A bita twenty kanga to yem yo tony 19 jain ga pinga tule. I'm your lady. Manai chow no musita mu no shemu nyimba mu ne semu along topye lebi. Yongji du along dwe pingiye malom myao yue phya ye ta bi mya phin tu le we no lebi. Manai ye di de jin lwan mo mu ye aw ma phya mya ye the shin jin lin dia the go bo song bi.
So I feel like the Lord wants me to share some of my, the way the Lord has led in my life. I grew up in Israel. My parents went over there and served for 30-some years. And so when I was 8, the Lord gave me a special gift that I was a little shy to share for many years, but in the recent years I've been sensing that the Lord, it's not about me and it's not for me, it's for the body of Christ. So I'm just going to share the gift that the Lord gave me when I was 8. I had a dream, and the scripture talks about in the last days old men will dream dreams and young people will see visions. But when I was 8, the Lord gave me a dream where I went up into heaven. My parents immediately began to write down the dream, because before I was done recounting it to them, they realized I must have actually been there. And it happened on the Day of Atonement, which in Israel is their holy day, the day that the whole country fasts and prays, and if you're a Gentile or whatever, you still need to be respectful, because this is a day where as a people they are crying out to God to forgive their sins for the whole last year. And so it was on that day that the Lord took me up into heaven, and I got to meet him. I got to see him face to face. So let me just tell you a little bit about that. I mean, it totally changed my life. When I hear of a person that loves the Lord that has died and gone to heaven, I am so excited, because the smallest detail of heaven is more incredible than anything earth has to offer. And you know, my dad just passed away end of October. He was our mentor. We took care of him in our home for the last 20 years. He poured into our lives. He mentored us in the prayer counseling deliverance ministry, and so that's our life calling as well. So when I was 8, and I took a nap like my mom told me to do, I had a dream, and I dreamed that I had died and gone to heaven. I dreamt that I began to walk up in the clouds. Well, I dreamt that I was shot first, so I knew in my dream that I had died. I dreamt that my spirit left, and I began to go up into the clouds and walked a long way, and then I met an angel, and the angel introduced himself to me as my guardian angel, and he said all of God's children or God's people have a guardian angel assigned to them from birth. And he was my guardian angel that had been with me. And so he took me, we walked and talked and for quite a while, and then we came to a grassy place, and a number of people came walking towards us, and I asked the angel, who are these people? And he said, these are people who have loved Jesus while they were on earth, and now they have come to live with Jesus in heaven.
Yay.
Yeah, so it was a whole group of people coming to meet me and greet me, and the first person that came to me introduced herself, and she said, Rosemary, I am your grandmother, and I came to be with Jesus when your mother was the same age as you are right now. And I didn't realize all of that, but my grandmother had passed away on the operating table when my mom was 8. And so my mom had suffered a tremendous loss through the course of her life. So I met my grandmother in heaven, and I was able to describe, she had very curly hair, and I hadn't seen any pictures of her up until then. And my grandmother actually had kinky hair. So yeah, that I saw her and met her. And so then I met my Uncle Don, who had passed away the year before. I didn't realize nobody, I remembered him, but I didn't realize nobody knew how he had passed away. And so here he explained to me the farming accident and what he had done, and the tractor had backed up on him and all that. So, but he was able to explain it, and it lined up with how they found his body. And so, but it was also an encouragement to his family back in Canada where he was farming, that he was spotted in heaven, because you don't always know, I mean, he was a good church-going person, but you always hope, it was enough, to actually make it to heaven. But so he was there, and that was a blessing to his family to be spotted there. So then I actually, a couple came up to me and knelt before me and introduced themselves as Adam and Eve. And they said they were so glad to see me and that I was there in heaven, but they wanted to ask forgiveness for bringing sin into the world, and that they're on behalf, that they are doing that for everybody somehow, but they just were really sorry, but they were really glad to see me there. There were some other people, I don't really remember who they were, but then the angel took me on towards a city the city of God, and I just heard this beautiful music coming out of the city. It was just absolutely incredible, and there were angels lining the pathway to get into the city, and beautiful light. The light of Jesus was really the light of the city, and it was shining out. So we came in, and everybody was just so happy. Just happy. There weren't any sad people there, troubled, just happy, just so overjoyed. And the beautiful music I was hearing was nothing like anything I had ever heard on earth. So we came to a doorway, and there was an angel at the door, and the angel's name was Gabriel. And he didn't say, "Hey, little kid, how'd you get here?" He said, "Rosemary, you are an honored guest here in God's house, and he has something very special to tell you." And I was a timid child, so I can't believe my boldness. I mean, I had no fear in heaven, and I was fine with what he had just said, and I said, "I would like to see Jesus." And he said, "Well, he's in this room. This is his throne room, and you're welcome. He has something very special to say." So as I came in, it was so bright, my eyes could hardly adjust to the light. But after a while, I could see that there was a throne, and the angels were bowing towards that central place. And I could see Jesus on the throne. And he held out his hand for me to come to him, and I just went straight up to him. That song, if I saw Jesus, would I bow or would I, whatever. As a child, I didn't know there was a certain protocol or whatever, and he wanted me to come, and I had no fear in his presence. I just saw the smile on his face and the love in his eyes, and I knew I had nothing to be afraid of, and I wanted to come up. And so I I came up the steps and I took his hand, and he indicated for me to sit. There was a small throne on his right side that was similar to his, and he wanted me to sit there. One more thing about his throne, as I was approaching his throne, there was a circular rainbow that I saw, and if you read in Revelation, John also saw a circular rainbow around the throne. So as I sat beside him and held his hand, and I looked in his face, I could just see the love in his eyes, and it was just the most incredible thing to see him and to see, the smile that he was constantly smiling at me. And so as I held his hand, I saw the nail scars in his hand, and I put my finger into his nail scars, and he described what had happened to him on the cross and what he had done for us, that we can come to be with him for all eternity in heaven because of his love for us. And so, and so then he asked if I asked if I could see God. And immediately a bright blue mist came into the room, and I could feel the power of God's presence, and the angels bowed before this cloud that I was seeing. And Jesus explained to me that God is spirit. He doesn't have a body like Jesus has. But I was just really amazed at the power that I was experiencing of that presence of God. And then they moved out of the room. And then Jesus asked me if I would like to see a little bit of heaven. So he took me outside, we walked around, and it was just beautiful castles and beautiful houses and people just milling about that were just so happy. There was just such joy there, such a brightness, beautiful colors that we don't have anything like that here. And of course the music, the worship was just incredible. Then he asked if I would like to see what earth looks like from heaven's perspective. And so we went again out to that grassy place where it had all started, and we looked down and we could see earth not so far away. It's not as far, heaven isn't as far off as we think it is, we just can't see it. And so I could see earth. Earth compared to heaven was muddy brown. The whole thing was just brown. I could see people walking around. They also were muddy brown. They were hunched over with burdens on their backs. I could see demons walking among them and putting burdens on, and then chains on their feet, and doing everything they could to bring trouble to the lives of people. But I could see Christians walking among them, and Christians had the light of Jesus shining out of their faces. And they had the authority to take those heavy packs off of people's backs and to take the chains off of their feet. And so that's what the Christians were doing as they wandered, as they were on this earth. And so I could see the homes of the Christians had bright light shining out of the homes. So that same light that is of Jesus was shining out of their homes. Over each home of the Christians was a flaming angel with a sword, a bright, just for their protection, for their provision. I could see our street, and remember, I grew up in Israel, and we always had this concern. I mean, we were there for 4 wars, so we were always concerned about our safety, but I saw our street was lined with angels, in addition to the one over the house, and I commented, at the time, I'll never be afraid again, because I could see my eyes were open to what the provision was. Yeah, so then Jesus asked if I would like to go back to earth. I said, well, I'd rather stay here with you. And when I think about it, here as a little kid, these were all kind of new people in heaven, and my family and everybody I knew was on earth, but that little taste of heaven was so much better than anything earth ever had to offer that I preferred to stay with him. But I said, if you want me to, I'll come back here. I'll go back to earth. And so he told me to tell my parents, you're doing a good job. So then the Lord also said to tell my family to tell as many people as possible that He is coming very soon, which we sang about today. He wants us to be ready for His coming. We're getting each other ready. We're getting others ready, but that's what He wants. He's coming very soon. He wants us to live in that reality. So then He placed His hands on my head and blessed me, and then I woke up in my bed. But my life has been changed forever, and as I was saying, I've been very shy for the earlier part of my life and reluctant to share it, but I'm realizing in the last number of years it's not a message about me. It's not a message. It's a message that Jesus wants people to know what's ahead. And at my work lately, I've been sharing it more and more with people, total strangers, and it's part of my testimony, and it's been a lot of joy to Anai chau na mu sita mu nau sha mu nyimpa mu nei sa mu along cho phye le bi Yong ji du along twe phin ye ma lo myaw ywe phya ye ta mi mya phin du le yin no le bi Mana ye di de jin lwan mo mu ye aw ma phya mya ye de shin jin lin tia the do bo sang bi Tham nhau lê bi, Giêsu phia nhà tham nhau lê bi, Tây Jim mà tham nhau lê bi. Kawara de shimuda Giêsu Christo, tham nhau ya lan, Giêsu phia nhà tham nhau lê bi, Tây Jim mà lum nhau ya lan. Giêsu phia nhà, Tây Jin go ao miền mưa.